Sari Sommarstrom. I'm an independent consultant in Scott Valley. I've been here since 1988. I've been an independent watershed management consultant since 1976. I moved here in 1988 with my family. Nursery with greenhouses on East Side Road and here in Fort Jones. So different last name. Sometimes we keep the names different to protect the innocent, you know. So I'm going to talk about the Scott River Water Trust as soon as we get the PowerPoint up here. It's one of several projects I work on as a consultant. It's not part of the TMDL. We were not a required entity. We were not even mentioned in it. But we're a voluntary. Okay. So I move over this mic. Is that on now? Okay, thanks. I just wanted to bring up this option. I've been around here for quite a while now, and I think a lot of people still don't know what we're about. So this is a good opportunity to let the community and the Regional Water Board to know what we're trying to do to solve one piece of the puzzle here. And again, a voluntary option. The context, of course, is what everybody here has been talking about, the Scott Valley farming and ranching community, with water use for irrigated lands of about 32,000 acres, which has been a fairly steady quantity for the last 50 years. The irrigation timing is from April through to September or a little later. And livestock water for cattle and horses in ditches year-round. Those are the two water uses that we're trying to address. And try to mesh it with the hydrologic situation that we have here. We're basically a snowmelt-fed system, our tributaries on the west side particularly, and the main stem. And so our hydrograph shows the peak runoff hasn't even occurred yet. It tends to be in May on the average year. This is an average of 60 years of record here. And then it drops rapidly in July. And that's when in July, August, and September, and sometimes into October, depending on the water year, is when we tend to have that more competition for water here between agriculture and in-stream uses. The context, as Danielle so well said today, is that watershed restoration has been going on here for over 20 years. And a huge effort has been made by individuals and the RCD and others. For instance, most of the active water diversions have been fish screened. It's a huge progress in a short time. 100% of the coho reaches have fish screens on them. 80% of the stream miles, that's main stem and tributaries, are fenced for livestock where needed. And then a lot of stock water systems have been put in as alternatives for ditches. And then the last ingredient that's the most challenging is just to add water where we still think we need it. So why did the Water Trust happen? Because we felt adding water to streams is a challenging task while protecting agricultural uses. This is so important. We want to maintain the health of Scott Valley's rural economy, communities, and the watershed, but yet we also need to protect the coho, salmon, chinook, and steelhead. We wanted a win-win voluntary tool to help farms and fish, and it's not an either-or. So what is the Water Trust? We are a local program that reimburses active water users for leaving their water in stream to benefit salmon and steelhead during their critical life stages in priority reaches of the Scott River and its tributaries while protecting family farms. We became a nonprofit in 2009. We have a staff. I'm very part-time and donate a lot of time as the executive director. Siskiyou RCD staff, Eric Yokel, who you heard speak yesterday, has done a lot of our monitoring. We have 5 board members, 3 are local, 2 are outside the area, and we have an advisory committee of local people of 7 people. How did we start happening? Well, the idea came, Gary Black and I, in 2001 was a critically dry water year, and we had it didn't start raining till December, and it was a very challenging water year. It was before a lot of other issues happened, and we saw what was going on in Oregon with the Water Trust there, and we thought, shoot, why can't we try that here? Again, a voluntary effort that seemed to be win-win. So Gary and I wrote a grant proposal in 2001, and finally it takes a year or 2 to get that in place, and we hired a water lawyer to study the water law, the 3 decrees that we have here, and to see if this would all be feasible in Scott Valley and with the state water law. We got a report done in 2004 by that law firm. Phase 2 then was another phase to try to understand what are the biological needs, what are the economics of water, what's the institutional options for the water trust, how do we get ourselves set up, and what are the financial options to bring money in, because the whole idea was to compensate people. And then phase 3 began in 2007, so this is our 5th year of operation this year. As many of you know, we have the context again for water rights is there's 3 different types of surface water rights. There's the riparian, they're pre-1914 appropriative, and post-1914 appropriative. All of the Scott River's water rights are within 3 different court decrees: the Shackelford Creek, 1950, French Creek Decree, 1958, and the rest of the Scott River Valley and tributaries in 1980. And again, as was discussed yesterday, under groundwater, even some of the interconnected groundwater was included in that last decree. In fact, the water code, the California Water Code, had to be changed when that decree was finalized, or before it could be finalized, to say only, in all of California, only in the Scott River Valley are groundwater and surface water interconnected. Nowhere else in California does the Water Code acknowledge that. The Water Master Service by Department of Water Resources has happened here by the courts. When those decrees are done, the Superior Court of Siskiyou County decides whether a water master is needed. So when the Shackelford Decree was done, the court said, you shall have water master service. On French Creek Decree, the court said, you shall have water master service. And when the Scott River Decree was adopted, the court said on these tributaries, Snicktaw, Orofino, and Wildcat. What we do to try and do leases, and I know several of our participants are in the audience here, the easiest thing to do is forbearance agreements. And it's a very informal contract, about 4 pages long, fairly much in English. You don't need attorneys to interpret it for you. Between the water trust, the water rights holder, and sometimes before we especially became a nonprofit, had to use a fiscal agent. This forbearance agreement specifies the flow amount that we're purchasing, the dates between such and such a date and the end date, what location of your diversion, what's the cost per acre foot that we're going to pay you, and what we think the estimated cost will be by the end. Another way of doing this is, or a supplemental way, is something through the Water Code called Section 1707, which is a formal process with the State Division of Water Rights. We've done one of these so far. The RCD with landowners on Sugar Creek has done several there, and there's one ongoing on East Fork right now. These are very long and expensive, but it does add instream as a beneficial use to a person's water right as an option. And right now it's usually irrigation and domestic and livestock, and this also adds instream as an option. We wish there would be a simpler process, but I'll get into that later. The summer flow needs, juvenile coho and steelhead. We know there are rearing areas with cool water and cover. Our priority streams, again from a lot of the surveys that Eric and Fish and Game and others have done, shows that our priority streams right now are French, Shackelford, East Fork, South Fork, and Patterson Creek. And when, from early July, it depends on the water year type, up to October 15th. And again, depends upon whether it's a critically dry water year or dry, or a good year like this year is a little different. How much? We go down as small as 0.2 CFS. And in some of these very small upper tributaries, that could double the existing flow. And we've gone as high as 3.0 CFS in specific stream reaches. Our fall flow needs are for adult fall Chinook and coho salmon to help migration and spawning. And this is primarily the main stem, not the tributaries, as the summer flows are. For Chinook, and then but we are concerned about trying to get the coho into some of the tributaries where they're known to spawn. Timing, again, is October, November for when the Chinook get here. They're not here in August, they're here in October. And coho come up later, mid-November to January. How much? We have found from experience, and again, this varies from year to year, but roughly 25 to 30 CFS at the U.S. Geological Survey gauge at River Mile 21, just below the valley, for spawners to get into Scott Valley. I don't know if this looks like it doesn't show up terribly well, but the coho salmon have been counted in Scott Valley at various times and places. The most consistent counts we have had has been by Fish and Game at their weir at River Mile 18 in the canyon. And we do know we have 1 strong brood year and 2 weak brood years, and this pattern has gone back to at least 1990 when we started doing the French Creek watershed group started doing counts in French Creek. So this is not a new pattern. But in 2007, it was 1,662, something like that, coho. Then we had the 2-week years of 60 to 80 coho. And then we had, this year, so far, the preliminary count is 881, and it's not a final count. So we're seeing that pattern. And this is important for the Water Trust to try and identify also priorities. But the second graph here on the right is something I think it's very, again, context. How does the Scott compare to other coho streams in California? And that left bar graph is, can't even read my own. Shasta River, the second one is Scott. The next one is the Mattole on the coast. The fourth one over is the Noyo, and the one on the right is Lagunitas. These are our coastal creeks on the 3 right. And for 2007, by far, the Scott River had the most natural run of fish. We're not counting hatchery fish in this, but and as bad as the counts were last year, we were either the first or the second highest in the state. And this year, we haven't gotten the 2010 counts for everybody across. But just wanted to put that in context, that we have good years and not so good years, and it's not as bleak as some people think on the Scott compared to other streams. There is a coho problem statewide.